Maybe you've felt it today. That heavy, cold realization sitting in your chest while you stare at your computer screen, or perhaps while you're sitting in your car in the driveway, unable to open the door because you simply don't want to go inside. It's that specific moment when we realize we are pouring our life's blood into a vessel that has no bottom. We've been told that winners never quit, but as we look at our reflection in the darkened window, we don't see a winner. We see someone who is slowly vanishing. It's possible that the most dangerous thing we can do right now is stay exactly where we are. But walking away isn't just about leaving a room. It's about a hidden power that most people are too terrified to ever use. There is an old story about the philosopher Zhuangzi that echoes through the centuries to find us here, in our modern exhaustion. Two high-ranking officials once found him fishing by a quiet river, the water moving slowly past his feet. They came with an offer of gold and prestige, a high-ranking position in the royal court. Without even turning his head to look at them, Zhuangzi asked about a sacred turtle that had been dead for 3,000 years. He had heard the king kept it wrapped in fine silk, locked inside a golden box in the ancestral temple. He asked the officials, would that turtle rather be dead and honored in a box, or alive and dragging its tail in the mud? The officials, confused, replied, it would rather be alive in the mud. Zhuangzi simply smiled and said, then go away. I shall stay here and drag my tail in the mud. This isn't just a story about a job offer. It's a mirror for our current lives. We often choose the golden box of prestige, a toxic relationship, or a soul-crushing career because it looks honorable to the neighbors, the family, or the ghosts of our expectations. We allow ourselves to be wrapped in the silk of a high salary or a socially acceptable title. While our spirit is suffocating inside the box, we have forgotten that there is more dignity in a messy living freedom than in a polished, prestigious death. There is a reason why the mud is safer than the gold, and it's hidden in the way nature handles pressure. In our modern world, we have turned endurance into a religion. We are taught from a young age that to walk away is to lose, to be weak, or to waste the years we've already invested. We stay in careers that make our hair fall out and our sleep vanish. We stay in friendships that drain our light until we are gray. We stay in habits that numb our minds because we fear the void that comes after saying no. The society around us doesn't want us to walk away because a person who can leave is a person who cannot be controlled. We have been conditioned to prefer the slow rot of the golden box over the vibrant uncertainty of the riverbank. We stay because we've been convinced that holding on is the only way to be strong. While the Tao suggests that the hardest thing, and the most vital, is to simply let go of the rope that is burning our hands. We are like a tree trying to grow through a concrete slab. We think we are being resilient, but we are actually just strangling our own roots. But how do you actually walk away without breaking your own spirit? The answer lies in 5 ancient pillars of wisdom. Before we dive into these pillars, I want to ask you something. We often feel alone in this mud, but the truth is, this river is wide. If you've ever felt the weight of that golden box, tell us where you're listening from today. Maybe you're in the heart of a bustling city or a quiet corner of the countryside. Share your location in the comments as a way of saying, I am here and I am still breathing. And if this conversation feels like the breath of air you've been needing, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps this quiet wisdom reach others who are still sitting in their cars, afraid to go inside. Now, let us look at why we find it so hard to leave. Consider the illusion of what we call the sunk cost. We often feel that if we leave now, we are throwing away everything we've built. Imagine a professional in her late 50s, let's call her Maria, working in a glass tower in the heart of São Paulo's Faria Lima district. She has spent 25 years climbing a ladder that she realized 10 years ago was leaning against the wrong wall. Her back aches every morning. Her joy has become a thin, brittle thing, and she feels like a ghost in her own expensive clothes. When she thinks about walking away, a voice screams in her head, "But what about the 25 years? If I leave now, they were for nothing." As the old masters like Lao Tzu remind us through the concept of Wu Wei, or non-striving, this inner battle is a form of violence against the self. We think that by staying, we are saving those 25 years. But the truth is, those years are gone regardless of what we do tomorrow. They are a spent currency. By staying another 5 years out of guilt, Maria isn't saving her past. She is merely doubling her losses by gambling away her future. In nature, a plant doesn't stay in toxic soil because it spent all spring growing there. If the ground turns sour, the plant either withers or its seeds find a way to travel. When we force ourselves to endure what is no longer fertile for our souls, we are fighting the natural flow of life. We are trying to push the river upstream. Walking away, in this sense, is not quitting. It is finally aligning ourselves with the current. It is recognizing that the 20 years were a lesson, not a life sentence. Once you stop paying for your past with your future, you'll notice something strange happening to your energy. This brings us to a second dimension of this freedom: the sacred no as a shield. Many of us have become the fixers in our lives. Think of the person in the family who is always the mediator, the one who carries the weight of everyone's drama during the Sunday barbecue. Let's imagine a man who has become the emotional pillar for his siblings, his parents, and his friends. He is the uncarved block, a concept Zhuangzi spoke of called Pu. Pu is our original, simple nature before the world started carving its expectations into us. Every time this man says yes to a burden that isn't his, every time he stays in a conversation that insults his dignity, or remains in a dynamic where he is used rather than loved, a new notch is carved into his spirit. He is being sculpted into a shape that isn't his own. He fears that if he walks away, if he says, "I can no longer carry this for you," he is being selfish or cruel. But the Tao teaches us that the greatest gift we can give the world is our own wholeness. By staying in a role that hollows us out, we are offering the world a shell, not a soul. Walking away from the role of the family martyr isn't a betrayal. It is a return to your uncarved state. It is the act of putting down the chisel and saying, "I am not a tool for your convenience. I am a living being." It is a reclamation of the space around your heart, creating a boundary that isn't a wall, but a garden fence, something that allows you to grow in peace without being trampled. But wait until you see what happens to the people you leave behind. It's not what you expect. When we finally choose to step back, we often fear the storm of judgment that will follow. We worry that by leaving, we are handing over the narrative of our lives to those who do not love us. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from maintaining a friendship that has long since turned into a desert. Imagine a group of friends who have known each other since school. Perhaps they meet every Friday at the same corner bar in a quiet neighborhood of Curitiba, or any city where the ritual of staying together has become more important than the quality of the connection. You sit there, and as the night wears on, the conversation turns to gossip, to the same old complaints, to the subtle belittling of those who aren't present. You feel a familiar tightness in your throat. You realize that these people don't know who you are today. They only know the person you were 10 years ago, and they are committed to keeping you in that box. The fear of walking away from such a circle is the fear of what they will say when your chair is empty. We worry about our reputation, that fragile ghost that lives in the minds of others. But the philosopher Liezi teaches us a profound geometry of detachment. True freedom is found when we let go of the fruit of action. In our world, we are obsessed with the fruit, the likes, the approval, the status, the good name. We act so that others will see us acting. But Liezi suggests that when we perform an act of courage, like walking away from a toxic bond, the result is not our business. Our only business is the integrity of the step itself. Think of a gardener. He plants the seed and tends the soil, but he does not sit and pull at the sprout to make it grow faster, nor does he control the weather. He is detached from the fruit because he is focused on the truth of the planting. When we walk away from a draining relationship, we must do so with this same detachment. There is a quiet power in being the one they talk about, if it means you are finally at peace. The loss of a friend who only loved your compliance is not a loss at all. It is the gain of your own mental silence. It is the moment you realize that their opinion of you is a cloud passing over a mountain. The cloud may be dark, it may even rain, but it cannot move the mountain. Leaving is only the first half. The second half is learning how to sit in the silence that follows. This silence often feels terrifying because we live in an era that abhors a vacuum. We have been trained to believe that an empty hour is a wasted hour, and an empty room is a sign of loneliness. But the Tao Te Ching offers us a different perspective through the utility of the void. It reminds us that we work with clay to fashion a vessel, but it is the hollow space inside that makes the pot useful. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner emptiness that makes it livable. We carve out doors and windows, and it is the void within them that allows light and air to enter. Our lives, too, need this void. In our digital age, we are never truly empty. We are constantly filled with the noise of other people's lives, the blue light of the screen, the urgent ping of a notification that demands our immediate presence. We feel that if we aren't seen, we don't exist. It's like a man who lives in a room so crowded with furniture that he can no longer move, yet he is afraid to throw anything out because he thinks the furniture is what defines the room. But when we walk away from a social circle, a digital addiction, or a frantic pace of life, we are creating that sacred emptiness. Consider the modern practice of disappearing from the digital noise for a while. It's not just a break, it is a reclamation of the void. By being nothing in those crowded online spaces, you suddenly become everything in your own physical reality. You begin to notice the way the light hits the floor in the afternoon, or the sound of the wind in the trees outside your window. Things that were always there but were drowned out by the clutter of your presence elsewhere. Most people fear this empty space because it forces them to meet themselves without any distractions. They fear that if the music stops, they will find there is nothing inside. But the Tao teaches us that the emptiness isn't a lack, it is a womb. It is the only place where something truly new can be born. Most people fear the empty space, but it's actually where your next great strength is currently sleeping. This brings us to the final, perhaps most intimate form of walking away. It is the act of leaving behind the version of yourself that no longer exists. There is a deep, quiet tension in the lives of many who have reached their middle years or beyond. A sense that they are haunted by the ghost of a younger person's ambitions. Consider the concept of ziran, often translated as self-sowness or natural spontaneity. It is the core of the Taoist path, the idea that everything in the universe has its own internal timing and its own unique way of being. A flower does not try to be a tree, and a river does not apologize for winding through a valley instead of running in a straight line. But we humans often do the opposite. We cling to dreams we had at 20 as if they were holy relics, even when they no longer fit the person we have become at 50 or 60. Imagine a man who spent his youth dreaming of being a titan of industry, a man who measured his worth by the speed of his climb and the weight of his influence. Now, decades later, he finds himself sitting on a porch in a small town in the interior of Minas Gerais, or perhaps a quiet suburb in the American Midwest, feeling a strange, nagging sense of guilt. He enjoys the smell of the rain on the pavement. He finds more joy in the slow growth of his vegetable garden than he ever did in a boardroom. Yet, a part of him feels like a failure, because he is no longer chasing that golden box he promised his younger self. He is struggling because he has not yet walked away from his own shadow. We are taught that consistency is a virtue, but nature shows us that the only thing that doesn't change is a stone, and even the stone is eventually worn away by the water. To follow the water is to accept that your self-soness has changed. Walking away from an old dream isn't a sign of defeat. It is a sign of deep maturity. It is the recognition that the skin you once wore has become too tight. And for your soul to continue breathing, it must be shed. There is no tragedy in outgrowing your former self. The real tragedy is staying trapped in a life that was designed by a person who no longer exists. There is one final shift in perspective that changes walking away from an exit into an entrance. Walking away is not an act of anger. It is not a tantrum, a retreat, or a sign that you were not tough enough to handle the pressure. It is, perhaps, the most profound yes you will ever utter. A yes to the small, quiet voice inside you that has been whispering for years that you deserve to breathe. When you finally stop trying to fix what was meant to be left behind, when you stop trying to glue together the shards of a vessel that was broken long ago, you don't fall into a void. You fall into your own life. You may find that the second half of your journey isn't about climbing higher, but about walking lighter. In the first half of life, we collect things, titles, possessions, opinions, and burdens, thinking they will make us whole. But in the second half, the wisdom years, we realize that wholeness comes from what we are willing to let go of. This is the season of the harvest, not the season of the planting. You aren't losing your place in the world. You are finally taking your place in the Tao. The river doesn't mourn the banks it leaves behind. It simply carries on, becoming deeper and wider as it approaches the sea. So, leave the golden box to those who still believe it holds a prize. Let the silk and the prestige belong to someone else for a while. You belong here, in the mud of your own authentic existence, alive, free, and finally at peace with your own shadow. You are not a quitter. You are a traveler who has realized that to reach the next shore, you must leave the old one behind. Go now and walk with the dignity of someone who finally knows their own worth. There is a great deal of road left, and it is much easier to travel when your hands are empty and your heart is full.